I am here with Kenna Barnes of Black and Pink. Kenna, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yeah, so I'm Kenna. I use she, they pronouns. I am the senior director at Black and Pink National. I've been here for 5.5 years, so we're in the trenches. Something that I always highlight when talking about Black and Pink is we do so much work. We support folks who are outside of prisons. We also support folks who are inside of prisons, specifically LGBTQ plus folks and folks living with HIV. But really, just we love all of our community members, no matter how they identify. But those are our focuses because so many of our siblings, queer and trans siblings, folks who are living with HIV, are disproportionately impacted by the carceral system. So, a big focus of ours is just really getting people those direct supports, which often is communication and touch points.
Gotcha. Yeah, Jennifer mentioned that you guys were such a big help for their work during the Advancing Transgender Justice Survey because you have these relationships with LGBTQ prisoners who are on the inside. I was wondering if you could go a little bit into like how you established those relationships and built trust with the community.
Yeah, it is becoming increasingly more difficult to connect with people inside prisons. We've been around for 20 years, and 2019, 2018, 2019, I can't remember the exact year, we pivoted to a nonprofit structure, a 501c3, because it was just better to get grants. It was better for funding. And the work that was happening before we turned into a 501c3 was really scrappy, grassroots, like people in prisons sharing contact information. And Jason Leiden, the founder of Black and Pink, was formerly incarcerated, and he just got a bunch of femdoms to make men pay for the work they were doing. Just like really radical, like unabashedly bury who we are work.
Mm.
And now, staying connected to folks in prison, we have a inside newsletter that goes out. And so that's how folks were getting in touch. Again, sharing, somebody would get the newsletter because they knew somebody who signed up and they shared the newsletter in the unit, and then they send a letter to ask to be added to the list. Some people connect to us via their connections outside of prisons. So it's all about networking. We have
Mm.
22,000 members in our database right now, which is incredible. And also recently, there has been a shift. Prisons really want people inside prisons to never speak to anyone outside of prisons and inside of prisons, quite frankly.
Mm.
So they've shifted to digital mailing centers, which increases censorship. They're digitizing all the mail that's coming in, and also has changed everybody's address. Mail that goes to Florida, that is for a Florida correctional facility, is processed in Pennsylvania. And
Mm.
so none of it makes sense. It's all kooky. So maintaining connections has gotten increasingly more difficult and is something we're really working on the ground.
Gotcha. So this, you said it's been more difficult to connect with prisoners because of this digital shift. That's a big reason.
Yep, the folks inside prison have their physical address, the place they're actually at. If you were to go and visit, you would type in that address. But then they also now have to navigate the digital mail processing centers. I am very aware of these policies. I know exactly where to look on the Department of Corrections website, in whatever state I'm looking at, and I still get return to sender mail.
Wow. And
SWAT.
that's a bigger rate than it was than returns were happening before. Okay.
Yes. Yes, it's
And
basically nationwide now, the digital mailing centers, processing centers. Yeah.
okay. Sorry, just to make sure I really understand. If you were to send physical mail like you used to, it has to go through one of these processing centers now? Ooh, okay.
And you have to find the address. And like sometimes, so in Iowa, the Department of Corrections has this list of, okay, if somebody's in Des Moines, you send it to this processing center in Las Vegas. If
Huh.
somebody is in Clarinda Correctional Center, you send it to this other address. And it's wild.
And
It's
what are they
wild.
doing at these processing centers?
They're scanning the mail and putting them into the system that I'm sure the prison pays them millions for. And then it goes on to people's tablets or people get computer time. And like we're at a place where when people are in solitary confinement, how are they getting mail?
Yeah.
It's unconstitutional. Just like absolutely a human rights violation.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's nuts.
it's nuts.
Okay, so they don't want them having physical mail at all.
No, because that they claim that's how drugs come in. And we all know it's the correctional officers. We all know.
Wow, yeah. The connection to the outside world, like that seems like one of the last avenues for that
Yeah,
is now taken
yeah.
away. Ooh, that's harrowing news.
And you can't send letters to another person inside prison. You can't communicate with other people who are in prison, which has been a policy, a pretty standard policy for a long time because they didn't want like gang members and people talking to each other. So a lot of folks have slipped notes to each other for years. But now this additional external communication is really horrible.
Wow, yeah. So you guys are now working on then like getting your newsletter through this system.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. When did that process start?
For the last, I would say the last year, we have put the newsletter on hold because we were getting so many return to sender
Mm,
newsletters that it wasn't efficient. It wasn't financially reasonable anymore. Like it didn't make any sense. Printing and mailing newsletters out
right.
costs, I think the last time we put it out was about $14,000 for just one because we're sending it to 22,000 people.
Yeah.
So this last year, I have been busting butt to figure out how do we do this. We're moving to a digital newsletter structure, and I am in the process of talking to organizations like the Prison Journalism Project on how are you getting your information inside these large
Yeah.
organizations who send mass things inside. I actually have a meeting with them next week with our editor in chief of the newsletter to figure it out. Because you also, it's bananas, Morgan.
Mm,
You also have to be added to people's accounts. Like some people can get onto an email system, which is like JPay or Securus. But first of all, you have to pay for stamps and to send and all of that. You can't attach anything. You can't have anything that has a link in it when you send things out. And often the person who's inside has to add you to their email list
mm.
before you can even send it.
So you can't do any outreach. They have to know who you are. Wow. Okay.
Prison is wild.
Yeah, no kidding. And as your is your newsletter like it's called Inside Newsletter?
Yeah, our
Is
inside
that
member.
available for the public to read it all?
Yeah, we have, I don't know, I'll send you the link. I don't remember the website it's on, but we have the digital copies online. We haven't uploaded the most recent ones, so that's something I'm also working on. We're a very small team. And link to newsletter. I even get the newsletter. I have the copy actually right here. So I get the newsletter in the mail too.
Mm.
So folks can do that, but I'll send you that link.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. So then when you guys were working on your surveys, your 2015 survey, I imagine, was physical. And then the 2024, right? That was the year.
Yep.
Was that also physical?
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. Wow. So this is a very recent development. Wow. Okay.
And Florida started it. Of course, Florida
Oh,
started
of
it.
course. They love to start.
Of course, Florida started it. So they were really the pilot program for a lot of this. For years, we've been sending Florida folks like the address to the Pennsylvania news or not newsletter, digital mailing center. We've been
Mhm.
sending it through that to them, but now it's just kind of everywhere.
Wow. Much to contend with these days. Wow. Okay. So did you work on these surveys, the 2024 and 2015 ones?
Yeah, not the 2015 one, but the work we did with Vera, I was a part of figuring out what questions we wanted to ask. We worked on the distribution of it, which even when we sent it physically, that was a really big lift. We also worked with them on really navigating what was important data, what felt aligned, and the overall messaging. Jen and Kelsey said to me in a meeting, they were like, "What do you want people to take away from this?" And I said, "I want them to know that people already tell what they need.
Mm,
They know what they need. They're already asking for it, and we're not listening. Nobody's listening."
mm.
So that was something that was like a really big through line throughout the whole project.
Right.
That
It's not like how do we help these poor people? It's like they're gonna tell you.
they're telling you, actually. Yeah, so it was a really interesting project to see. Have you read the report? Have you gotten into the report?
I've definitely read the overview. I haven't like really gone through with a fine-tooth comb.
The overview, that's where a lot of the like really meaty stuff is. Just learning that like we've all been saying trans women should be housed in women facilities, and the trans women in prison were saying, I don't want that. I
Mm,
like being in men's facilities because for whatever reason, like a lot of the things that came out of it were not what we think, not what we
mm.
had originally thought. Even people deep in this work finding things like that out were, it was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, the kind of myth busting and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And get surprised, everybody's an individual.
Right. This just in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that really helps with not just myth busting, but there's all sorts of narratives that people want to make about marginalized communities. And it can be well-meaning, but then as we're seeing, it can also be very dangerous. So getting these people's individual voices and experiences out there and challenging the notion that one group is all the same is, I
Mhm.
think, really important work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the kind of development of those survey questions because that was something that Jennifer and Vera couldn't comment on, so that's a gap in my understanding. Yeah, so like you said you wanted to make sure you got the important data. What is the important data?
Yeah. I think just really, even people identifying themselves. I have been a researcher for years. And so something that I learned from Dr. Sophia Jawed Wessel, who was a wonderful mentor in grad school, was let people self-describe. Let
Mm,
people tell you who they are instead of giving them these options. So even the demographic questions, what aligns, what feels best, and then how do we group those together? So if somebody's saying they're gender queer, do we group that into gender nonconforming? Do we make that its own group? Navigating some of those things for actual statistical analysis was really important. But it was really important to me to say we need to let people self identify. They have to tell us. So,
gotcha.
again, even those moments of they'll tell us, we just have to ask the right way.
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, so was that like leaving it more open-ended? And then did you end up like doing your categorical analysis based off of their responses instead
Yes.
of going in? Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
Gotcha.
exactly. And Kelsey, oh man, Kelsey is an analysis analyst. I don't know what you would call analyst is right. And she was able to really come up with groups that made sense, but were also made it possible to analyze the data.
Mm,
But yeah, definitely like we created those groups afterwards.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
What was that process of working with Vera like? Were
It
they
was, go ahead.
were they like understanding of letting you guys take the lead? Were they pushing back a little bit? Just like what was the dynamic there?
Yeah, they were really, they asked for a lot of it. They wanted to know. We really operated as experts in the field, and just having that on the ground knowledge was something they valued a lot.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was.
Um, Yeah, something I've been trying to like point to in this project that I'm doing about how independent researchers can take over where the government, as much as we can, as much as is possible, where the government is leaving holes, trying to point towards like advocacy groups and people who are connected to, especially, sorry, marginalized communities. Do you have like pointers for that of how to connect with more like analysis focused or bigger research groups with more reach and how to, I don't know, promote yourself as go through us. We can get you connected to the population you want to study.
That's a really interesting question. My initial response is they should be finding us. They have more resources.
Yeah.
They should be paying us. They should be finding us.
Ab-
We shouldn't have to do that work. That's my initial response. And also, I think putting our name on things feels really important. I learned a lot from that project around we should have been co-authors because I think that would have put more of our expertise
mm,
in the space for people to know that we could do that. But we worked with Lambda Legal, Andrew Olliman, who was our deputy director. He worked really closely with Lambda Legal on a report, and I can send you that. And then he and I worked with the ACLU National on another report as field experts. And it was
mm,
right in that same kind of pocket of time. So I think those larger institutions get wind of experts in the field as other folks are working with them. I also think it's up to us to really make sure we're advocating for our names to be in those spaces, for our place to really be known. But I do think it's up to those bigger organizations with resources to actually ask the people who are on the ground.
right. Yeah. If you have the resources to spare, then please.
Spare them.
Yeah. So
You're
are you
telling
guys,
me your research, like a whole development research, whatever structure, you don't have anybody who can do the research to find knows
right?
the most.
Yeah.
It,
Embarrassing, not gonna lie.
right, seriously.
So are you guys not credited as co-authors on the Vera report, the 2024?
We're not. We are, we're mentioned and there was a thank you at the beginning of it, but that was and they asked us if we wanted to be. Like, that was an option. They were great, but it was something that I was like, no, it's fine. But now looking back, that was a lesson for me to say, actually, we should have, because we could have done so much more research with that. We could have even while we're mentioned, while they honor us, it could have been like on our website in a
Mm,
different way. So
yeah.
they offered it.
What was the reasoning at the time?
I think it was, first of all, so it was happening in 2023. It was released in 2024, but I wanted to be humble.
Mm,
I wanted to be like, no, Vera's doing the data analysis. They're doing, but we did a lot too. So a lot of it was me just wanting to not take credit.
classic.
It
Yes.
really was. And now I was an advocacy coordinator at the time. I was not in the place that I am now. As the senior director, I'm like, nope, put your name on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So just
advocates
your
cannot afford to
perspective.
stand back in 2026.
What a surprise.
Yeah, I
So
get
it's
that
really
though.
neat. Yeah, it was like a career. The place I was in my career, I didn't know how important that would be.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. Okay, so yeah, I talked about with Jennifer about how LGBTQ prisoners, especially trans prisoners, are a very hard to reach population, a lot of it because of safety concerns of being out, of being perceived as even being associated with queer materials, and then reporting your identity to prison administration is also its own can of worms. We talked about how federal data has on trans people has suffered because of this, because of all the reasons you wouldn't report to the government.
A prison.
Uh,
Yeah.
a prison, especially,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I wanted to ask, like, with all of the dangers in mind, why do trans prisoners, LGBTQ prisoners, why do they want to be included in data projects like yours? What makes them want to speak out when it's so dangerous?
I think having a trusted organization involved, that's where these larger institutions could really benefit from engaging with with organizations like ours who are really integrated into the systems, who are trusted with queer and trans folks. I think that's part of it is the trust, but also being really clear that you're, first of all, not required to do this. Second of all, you are going to be anonymous. Like we were very clear that their names would not show up, that their nothing would be included. We would, as soon as we got the data, we would input it and then erase all of your identifiers. That was a really important point for us when we were sending out the information about the survey was to be so clear about how we were using the data.
Yeah.
I also think people are right to protect their privacy. And I talk about it a lot. Like, how do we do ethical data collection in the real world around queer and trans folks?
Right.
I don't know if I necessarily have the answer outside of work really hard to build trust and be really clear about what you're doing with the data and who gets to see the data.
Yeah, so that like identifier data, you said erased, so you don't have that anywhere? Okay, yeah, that seems huge to me. You have that data sitting somewhere, it seems like a huge vulnerability.
And you can do, I've worked with the Digital Defense Fund on what do we do with some of this really sacred information? We are in the middle of revamping our entire PenPal website because the software we were using was not secure.
Mm.
And I was like, in this time, I cannot have trans and queer people vulnerable
Yeah,
to hackers, to the government. So we're doing a huge overhaul with our system because of the safety. The Digital Defense Fund was really clear about erase it.
yeah,
Put in a policy that says we hold private information for 3 months and then erase it.
yeah, that makes total sense to me. Yeah, that's like another side of this whole like federal data eraser issue is they're also building up like surveillance data like insane. So yeah, there's the erasure, but there's also like privacy protections. And I think those conversations need to be happening
Oh,
simultaneously.
And that's the digital mailing centers are that's the huge it's surveillance, it's censorship, it's surveillance, and it's isolation.
Yeah.
They want to know what people are saying. And there's even legal mail is different. If you're talking to an attorney, the attorney puts their bar number on the letter to be like, you can't read this, prisons.
Mm.
So now we're navigating like, how are these things being digitized if it's a right for them to have privacy with their lawyer? It's wild.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
wild.
man. Oof. Okay. That we could talk about that, I'm sure, for hours only, but yeah. Oh man. But there's so much I want to get through. Okay. How long do I have you for, by the way?
Tell three.
Okay, sweet. Okay. So yeah, we're seeing these federal measurements, which, as we talked about, were not perfect because you had to self-report your identity, always an issue. But we have this like report from the UCLA Williams Institute that like 360 federal data sets have had sexual orientation, gender identity measurements removed, including things like ICE detention stats, national inmate security, other prison statistics, National Crime Victimization Survey. What does it mean for queer people to be erased from this data, especially prison data? Why is this such a big deal?
It's a curse and a blessing, in my opinion, which I think a lot of researchers would be like, what are you talking about? Blessing? No. But then they don't have that data. That's the blessing of it. The curse is then we can't show that there's disparities. Then we can't show that certain policies are being used against certain people. PREA, which is the Prison Rape Elimination Act, sounds really good on paper. It says we don't want people inside prisons to experience rape or sexual harm, but it is consistently used to isolate queer and trans folks and folks living with HIV because they're a safety hazard, right? They don't
Mhm.
want them to be raped. And so then they put them in administrative segregation, which is different than solitary confinement. Solitary confinement has more parameters.
Mm.
Administrative segregation, it's dangerous for them to be out, so they have to be here for
It can
until,
mean anything.
yeah.
Okay.
So then we don't know how PREA is being used. We don't know how many strip searches are happening on queer and trans folks. It's really, there's, like I said, it's a curse and a blessing because also it could work in the favor of people experiencing the misuse of PREA too. If they don't put down their queer, then maybe they won't be seen as a safety hazard.
Yeah.
So it's every policy, I think in general, but especially in prison, is so dependent on how it's being used.
Yeah. And the erasure of data means the oversight is gone.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah.
then it's also, did we like that policy?
Oversight working.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I've run up a lot as I've been researching for this project is the data that we had was what kind of adds added security to the system. So if you believed in the system, thought it was overall good and working, this data loss is tragic, full stop. If you are critical of the system, it's a
Yeah.
little bit more complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been feeling that a lot. And one of the things that I think could be a possible positive outcome eventually is having federal data shut off means that more groups like yours get to be brought into the fold where these research centers have to rely on you and on the actual community and building trust with them.
Ah, so true. Yes.
So
That's a really
that's
good perspective. Thank you for that, actually.
oh, thank you. It's beautiful to find somebody who sees it in similar ways.
Really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really strange for me to hear stuff like that because I'm like, but what?
But remember how then they did use it? Remember how
Yeah,
that was bad? No.
right, exactly. Yeah, so that's a really good point that it is a blessing and a curse. What scares me, I think, is that we are still living under the system that the data was created to help mitigate. So I think like my fear at the moment is okay, we're still living in the box, but now the box is opaque. So yeah, have you heard anything like from your contacts on the inside about how the changes towards attitudes towards queer people, the policy changes, how that has affected people on the inside?
It's bad. It's really bad. I just had a member call me yesterday and she was telling me that she's in Missouri and they just passed this, or they're trying to pass this appropriations bill for the prisons, for the Department of Corrections. And they tacked on like this tiny little message at the end that says, we can't spend any money on gender affirming care. And so this appropriations bill, people are going to pass it
Yeah.
because legislatures, oh, they're not the entire body. They're not reading everything. And also, even if they are, they don't care. But she's gonna have to navigate not having hormones after being on them for 15 years.
Oh God.
And people die. It
Yeah.
is like life threatening to
Yeah.
have to imagine that. And she's just one person. A lot of these state entities are taking federal executive orders and running with them, acting like they have to. And we know they don't. They
Mhm.
are institutionalizing these things. And a lot of them, I think, are just scared because they know that the administration will pull funds if they don't align. It's devastating. And that's with, I have another member who she has been in administrative segregation for months. I couldn't find her. There are ways you can look up people. We couldn't find her for a minute. She eventually came back up that she had moved facilities, but she was lost in the system. So many people get lost in the system
Mhm.
because she requested new housing because she didn't want to be in a dorm with seven dudes.
Yeah.
She asked for new housing and they put her in administrative segregation for months,
Wow.
months.
Yeah.
And I think she's still in there. I'm pretty sure. The last time we talked, I think she said she was still in there, but it's shifted a little bit. I don't know. Anyway, that's in the weeds, but yeah, it's bad. It's not great.
Yeah. Oh.
It's not great.
So yeah, the people who are going through stuff like that where their care is being cut off, the do you see like a relationship between that and like the cutoff of federal data? Like how are we going to know the consequences of these policy decisions if we don't have this?
Yeah, I think that's when you have to make sure you have connections to people inside.
Yeah.
You have to have connections to organizations who have connections to people inside. I think we're going to have to get a lot scrappier at coming right to the source. And there's absolutely an alignment. They want to erase trans people in particular, trans women in particular. They want to erase their existence. And they don't care what happens. I really think these prison doctors and medical staff have a lot of responsibility that they are not taking.
Yeah.
I think they are absolutely complicit in genocide. It is genocide. I'll say it with my whole chest. It is
Yeah.
genocide.
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about that. The Lemkin. I think Institute for Genocide Prevention issued its third red flag for anti-trans genocide in the US last month in March. Yeah. And we know that erasure is like an integral part of the genocidal process. Like in some ways, that's the purpose is to erase and destroy entire identities. So I've been thinking like from the state perspective, erasing data on trans people is really plays into this from where I'm sitting. And yeah, I wanted to get your perspective on that. From the state perspective, does the erasure of this data make it easier to disappear these people not only in the data but from public?
Life. Yeah. Yeah. We've seen it with Indigenous folks. We've seen it with Black folks. Like you erase somebody's identity and then you don't have to care. Now, my like Roman Empire is national parks are actually just a way for the country to steal from Indigenous people.
Mm.
We could also have a whole entire session about that.
Oh yeah.
But like it's these little things that the government does that people don't even clock as genocide
Mm.
that are. Yeah, ask any Black Indigenous folks, and they will tell you, like, that's exactly what they've done. That is exactly what they have done. They track a lot and then they say, oh, never mind, you don't exist. To our side. You have to go
I
to schools. You have to convert. But they have to track all the data first to know what they're navigating.
That's such a good point. I haven't thought about that where it's like gathering the data in the first place is step one.
Totally.
Ooh.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's another point to data is not inherently good.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
oh, wow.
Data
Yeah.
done by the government is, I'm not quite sure. I just stand in like a, I don't know. Should the government know that about us? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm there with you. I think you're centralizing anything gives a bad actor the opportunity to come in and take it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And information and power work the same way.
Yep. Yep. It'll do it every time. Yeah, they've used prisons, anything that is happening outside of prisons that is heinous, they practiced it first inside
Mhm.
prison.
Yes.
And knowing what we know about Black folks experiencing incarceration and how this is now, that still exists, but they're taking those tactics and they're moving them to queer and trans folks. It's really concerning, but also is why it's so important for people to collaborate and connect because Black folks have navigated this for centuries. Indigenous folks have navigated this for centuries, and they have tools that we should all be using because they have sorry, we're not probably supposed to cuss.
You're
They
good.
have lived. They are still here. So like they did a lot of really amazing things to do that. And so we have to pivot those tactics and really work together. There's just no other option anymore.
Yeah. What have you been collaborating with other groups? Have you been collaborating with like other like Black communities, Indigenous communities? Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, just the nature of the work. We have a lot of our folks are Black or Indigenous or people of color because of the rates of incarceration and punishment in those communities. And then you add being queer or trans, or you add living with HIV, and it's like game over in a lot of ways, which
Enemy number one.
seriously. So a lot of our work already really coincides, but we work with folks in Tennessee. We Care Tennessee is an organization. Our executive director is also the executive director there. She's a
Mm.
powerhouse, Jasmine Tasaki. And she primarily supports trans women who are in Tennessee. It's like incredibly dangerous. And Black trans women. She's a Black trans woman leading this organization. She is the person who has this lived experience. We've worked with, oh my God, where are they? I'm blanking. Ubuntu, they're an evaluation organization. We also have a meeting with them today about evaluating our data, our programming through a anti-racist lens. Like they are a Black led organization specifically to look at how we're navigating Blackness in these systems, and are we evaluating the right things? Do we have the right information to make people be in the best position they can be? So it's just all those touch points along the way. I never want to recreate the wheel because the wheel was created particularly by Black women. So why?
Yeah, it
What am I
already
going to
exists.
know?
It exists and it's been turning.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of work that we do within the anti-racist lens, within the harm reduction lens. All of that is really pivotal, not pivotal, but central to our work.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, that's another thing I've been wanting to highlight with this project is collaboration, especially getting like in touch with communities is the way forward when the central power abandons you. Uh, so I think that's really important. And something I've noticed, like this is definitely a problem in journalism, and I think in academia as well, and research is this kind of hesitancy to include marginalized voices even when you are studying them because it's seen as not objective. Like you're biased, you don't have our correct lens and background. And I think that is part of why this like the panic and the despair over the lack of federal data because oh my beautiful objective source is gone.
And what does objectivity even mean
Mm.
in these places? Oh, your lens of whiteness isn't okay, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to your median ex-government researcher who has found themselves unable to do the work that they were doing? Like, how would you try to bring them into to including more qualitative, more like voice, that kind
Yeah.
of thing?
Yeah, I think I would say I don't know how nice I can be about this, so I'm just not going
You
to
could be
say it.
mean.
Be more creative. Be more creative. And don't think of yourself as the expert. I will never be the expert of the people we serve because I'm not a Black person. I'm not an Indigenous person. I'm system impacted. I've gone to court. I've got charges, but I've never been to prison. And why do you think I've never been to prison? Like, I'm not the expert. So what I do is I ask people who are, and I say, here are the resource people to do it, and say, okay, now where do you need me to step in? Even setting up the structures and saying, okay, I set up all this background work. I did the lit review. What do we need to gather for this
Mm.
data? And paying them. But I really do think that folks who have been in this work, who have lost a lot of that, even community organizations, community health centers, I have been like, yeah, you're gonna have to get closer to the actual people now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Have those connections, maybe why? Maybe think about why.
Yeah. So to go back to prisons, federal prisons especially, one of something else that came up while I was talking to Jennifer with Vera is the idea of prisons showing us the way that our power structure sees its people and sees its responsibility to it. because it is a place where they have total control over their citizens' lives. And yeah, I think the way that we're seeing this shake out with trans people is we're seeing like gender affirming care being totally nixed in federal prisons, which the Marshall Project and others have said this is going to result in deaths. There was a trans reporter, Alexandra Vaca, who called this like forced conversion therapy. I think just federal prisons, yeah, as the site of control. And
Yeah,
to me, like the way that it's related to data, and I think, okay, this now I remember what I
found
was
it.
trying to say. To me, you can draw a line from data erasure in prisons to conversion therapy in prisons. The way that the erasure starts with information, identity, being able to have this oversight and see and identify people, and then leading into not being able to see them, and then leading into them being actively persecuted. Yeah, so I wanted to get your perspective on that, like that line, that relationship, and also, yeah, I've gotten some pushback about, I've been on this prison data kick for a little bit. I've gotten pushback on people don't really care about prison data. You need to focus more on climate data or whatever, all the other areas that are being targeted by the Trump administration. And I kind of
Mhm.
want to show this is what happens when we don't know what's going on in prison data. Yeah, sorry, I've been monologuing, but your reactions.
I don't know if I have, I don't know if I have any reactions outside of it's genocide. It is
Yeah.
conversion therapy. It is, and I think it's worse than conversion therapy because they generally want those people to live.
Mm.
And I'm just not quite sure that's the goal here. I think it's, yeah, it's really messy. It's really weird. I also think that so much more is connected to prisons than anybody wants to know. Prisons are a place where the EPA is not checking into, and there are bad climate things happening in prisons. There are really nasty poisoning, like radon poisoning, and all of these things happening in prisons that, like, is a direct tie to climate issues. It's a direct tie to the economy. Who's funding these prisons? I think that what I've learned in this job is anytime there's an issue, like a large issue, you can probably pinpoint it to prison or see how it shows up in prison and how the government is dealing with it there, because that's
Mm.
probably what they're going to do.
Right. Yeah, this punitive aspect of government, it's rolled up into it. It's part of its identity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Really. It's the whole
And
thing.
yeah, and I feel like we always in our day-to-day lives want to like shunt that to the side, ignore it, not relevant to me. But in these moments where more and more people are becoming targeted and the punitive systems are kicked into overdrive, is when we should have been paying attention the whole time, because it really, but we really need to now.
Yeah, we're all a lot closer to being incarcerated than we'd like to think. Unless you are a billionaire, they don't care about it. They don't care about us. We're all so much closer to it than we think. It's alarming.
Yeah,
People don't like to think about that because people also hate people in prisons. They deserve to
absolutely.
be there, but do they? And I'm always like, statistically, the folks who literally have mental health disorders that make it incredibly difficult for them to be in community, right? People who are born with, who are living with, I don't know what you'd call it, who are diagnosed as psychopaths, right? Or sociopaths. It's about 1% to 2% of the population. And I still don't deserve that they belong in prison. And the rest of the folks in there are there because of socioeconomic, demographic issues, right? Like, I still don't believe that the people who are born with some like neurological situation that makes it really difficult for them to be in community, they don't belong in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Uh, yeah. So say the system that the data we're losing has been keeping in check, no longer sustainable, crumbles
Mhm.
around us. You have a hopeful vision of the future, and what would like data's role on, or the role of data on LGBT populations play in that?
That's a really good question. Ideally, the government would know nothing about anybody's sexual orientation or gender identity, and they would just be like, I don't know where you belong, but it's not prison.
Live and
Help.
let live.
Good luck, everyone. But I think that the hope is for these institutions to really start trusting and believing that the people who are directly connected, or even better yet, the people who are the ones they are researching or want to support, that they can more directly connect to those folks, and we can build a really strong infrastructure of abolition is the dream, but one step at a time. Of community. It would be beautiful to build a really good infrastructure of community, because I think so many more people, the more people learn about prison, the more I can see on their face, like, whoa, this should not be happening. And
Right.
it's, yeah. So if we all collectively move in that way, I think it could be really impactful. And I do think we are. I think people don't have an option anymore.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think moving towards community solves a lot of
So
the
many
issues.
problems.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is Black and Pink? What are you doing in your work to move towards community, towards this beautiful vision of the future?
So many things. We have opened up a residential housing. It's duplexes, but it's a community, and it's for folks who are 19 to 30 years old, who are coming out of the system, who are coming out of
Mm.
foster care, who are impacted by these family surveillance systems or the youth detention centers, and they don't really have a place to go. And so we've got 4 residents who are in the program right now. A lot of the program is like, what community service are you doing? Like, how can we help be communal in the house? Really teaching those communal concepts. And then we're in the process of building out the community center. It's Opportunity Campus. I don't know if I said that, but the community center will be a place where we'll have showers for folks to come drop in. We'll have rec rooms. We'll have an industrial kitchen so folks can come in and do food classes. And we're really wanting to, we're in a predominantly Black neighborhood. And while our focus is queer and trans folks living with HIV, young folks, we're wanting to show the neighborhood that, like, queer and trans folks make your community better. Come be a part of this with us. So even just integrating that neighborhood feeling is something we've worked really hard to do. We did a clothing drive for the neighborhood. We do food distribution where we deliver the food, because we know transportation is a really big barrier for folks. We have all these community organization connections that we get the food donated to us by an organization called Whispering Roots. We get the clothes donated to us by folks at Omaha for Us and our friends, our family, like, just really building out that on the ground neighborhood has been a really huge focus of ours lately.
Gosh. And so is this based in Omaha?
Yeah, we're national with our inside member stuff, but a lot of our like re-entry residential stuff, all of it's
Mhm.
in Omaha.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sick. Yeah, and then as far as data goes, how what kind of role do you think that would have in a community? To me, I think bringing in kind of the social sciences and physical sciences too into a more localized and kind of participatory space, I think could have a benefit. But yeah, what do you guys have plans? Like, how does that play a role?
Yeah, I'm an evaluator, I'm a researcher. So I have been doing evaluation of the program the whole time, but bringing in that Ubuntu who does the evaluation of programming to really beef that up and find out what we're missing, what we're needing, and how we can integrate more programs, more people into the programs. What are we missing? Who are we missing? Because I'm not objective. That's impossible.
Right. Yeah.
So bringing in external consultants and people who have a external lens is really a big part of it, but really just we're really committed to everyone is welcome here. And I know that's so cheesy and so cliche. And I think a lot of people have moved away from that because people want their own space. And I think that's important too. But we can't sustain our work without the buy in of the community. We can't.
Yeah. You don't get anything done alone.
No, nothing, nothing. And that's a big gap that I see in a lot of spaces.
Totally. Okay. And it's also like this, the data is tied in directly to the kind of services that you're hoping to provide.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So it's not so much studying, gathering information for information's sake, it's tied to the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. How are we going to implement what people tell us is
Mm,
missing? How are we going to bring that in? It's absolutely, data has to be purposeful. It can't be for
mm.
no reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're asking people questions. We better do something with it.
Yeah. That it seems like a good way to keep it accountable, the collection process accountable.
Totally.
When it comes to like helping other researchers who are maybe looking to duplicate or base their work off of yours, do you like have, I don't know, what is your like policy on like information releases and data releases and this kind of the collection is very purposeful, but can it have a wider purpose outside of the specific context in the community?
Share. I will, if anybody wants to know how to research certain things, none of this is proprietary. Unless some of it can be, right? But the approach, we want people doing this. We want people involving community. Yeah, it's everyone's. It's not just ours, it's everyone's. We would love for people to know and be able to do this too.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that.
It is
Okay.
10. I just want to flag. Gotta
Gotcha.
I've got to hop off in about a minute.
Gotcha. All right. So, yeah, another thing that I'm hoping to do with this project is to assist like independent groups, advocacy groups. So, yeah, and we're working to spotlight, highlight the PR kind of game, but also connecting in between. Are there pain points for your organization? Are there ways that other research groups or journalists like us can help out? What do you need from the kind of independent research community?
I would love for people to start figuring out how to talk to people in prison. We're revamping the Pen Pal website, so eventually in the next month or two, that should be up for people can pair with pen
Mm,
pals on our website. People need to know how to talk to people in prison. People need to be those resources. We have to stop talking about, yes, there are barriers, and then not even knowing what the barriers are. If people are connected to, are committed to supporting folks in prison, they need to be talking to them
gotcha.
and figure out it is so hard to talk to people in prison. And I think that people are like, oh, you can just give them a call. I'm like, you can't call people in prison. You can't do
Yeah.
that. So even just those little things people don't know and they should. They need to know.
Yeah. Okay. So you have your pen pal website revamp coming up. Where are other places that people can start?
They can follow us on Instagram. They can follow us on Facebook. I can send you all those links too. And then our website is blackandpink.org. And we're doing the thing. There are a lot of resources on there, but more of the day-to-day event things are on our Instagram and Facebook.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Is there anything that you wish you could do more of that maybe like a partnership with another org could help you out with?
Oh, I would love to figure out how to have automatic updates on people's addresses, uh,
Mm,
and figure out how to maintain those things with a system, a software. So if anyone's got anything, oh my God, please help us because that's a big barrier for us is we don't know where people are at. We don't know the new addresses. It's so tedious to find out the addresses. So if
mm.
anybody has like a software that they use, we would love it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we do have a little shout out section on the Prairie Fire newsletter. So
Love
yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd
Sick.
be
Awesome. So I think that was pretty much everything that I wanted to ask. Yeah, do you have anything for me? Anything that I missed?
I don't think so. I'll definitely, if I think of anything, send you an email if I think of anything, but I'll send those links and everything too. So we'll be in contact. I would love to, whatever you find, anything in this that you publish, would love to see it.
Sick. Yeah. And same for you. I would love the new pen pal website when you guys get that up.
Perfect.
And
Deal.
I'll let you know what Michelle Billman has to say from Marshall.
Yes. Thank you.
Of
Amazing.
course. Yeah.
Okay. It's so wonderful talking to you, Morgan.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yes. Right back at you. Have a good one.
You too. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.